Hey guys, it's Jeannie here. I want to go ahead and do this quick video. We're going to go ahead and read this book now, which is If Life Were Easy, It Wouldn't Be Hard. And I think we left off on chapter 3. So we're going to go ahead and do that one. It's the title of this chapter is Our Charity Sometimes Faileth. So, okay, so let's go ahead and start. Nephi saw in vision that the pure love of Christ, or charity, is most desirable above all things. And his father Lehi described the unspeakable reach and power of this love. I have beheld his glory, he recorded, and I am encircled about eternally in the arms of his love. Joseph Smith did also, as he described in his 1832 account of the first vision. My soul was filled with love, and for many days I could rejoice with great joy. The prophet Joseph declared that it is natural for females to have feelings of charity. You are now placed in a situation where you can act according to those sympathies which God hath planted in your bosoms. He then promised, if you live up to these principles, the angels cannot be restrained from being your associates. Our Father gifted his daughters, in particular, with the nature of nurture, encourage, and bear with one another, knowing that these gifts, this inclination toward charity, would be vital to all mankind. President Gordon B. Hinckley has referred to the women of the church as the one bright, shining hope in a world marching toward moral self-destruction. The women of the church are the hope of the world precisely because it is not possible to limit the influence of a woman of God who is filled with the pure love of Christ. For that matter, the same is true of men. It is not possible to limit the influence of a man of God who hears the holy priesthood and who is filled with the pure love of Christ. Satan knows this, and he hates followers of Christ for it. We are among the greatest nightmares because his greatest nightmares because he knows he cannot limit our influence unless he can neutralize our respective natures. So, if he can get us to break the law of chastity, or develop an addiction, or become consumed with or blinded by the world, he laughs. When he seduces a man or a woman of God, he not only neutralizes those individuals, but is poised to infiltrate their families. If we don't fall for blatant tactics, however, he resorts to more subtle schemes, hoping to weigh us down with baggage that obscures our divine nature and causes us to buckle spiritually under the load. He tries to get us to judge, gossip, envy, resent, and punish those we could otherwise be nurturing. He is particularly fond of what could be called the 3 C's: competing, comparing, and categorizing. Why do we compete with each other? If we all had the capacity to work at our peak every day to build the kingdom, which none of us have, there would still be more to do, more to accomplish, more to get done, more people to influence. Why do we not therefore cheer for each other's gift, contributions, and sincere efforts to make a difference in the world? Why do we make comparisons that are never fair? Why do we have an insatiable urge to label and categorize everyone where no one can be defined by a one-dimensional category? We're not supposed to be alike. We weren't given the same gifts. None of us were given all the gifts of God, but we were each given at least one spiritual gift. And the reason seems obvious. The Lord needs a full spectrum of talent consecrated to his work. He also wants us to work together, rejoicing in each other's strengths and together compensating for each other's weaknesses. That is why comparing, competing, and categorizing traps we seem to fall into naturally and repeatedly are deadly. Behaviors such as these results from strategies forged in the bowels of hell by Lucifer himself. Lest you think this an overstatement, remember what the risen Lord told the Nephites. He that hath the spirit of contention is not of me, but it is of the devil, who is the father of contention, and he stirreth up the hearts of men to contend with anger, one with another. And to our dispensation the Lord declared, if ye are not one, ye are not mine. Elder Cree L. Cofford said this in a classic general conference address. Have you noticed how easy it is to cross over the line and find fault with other people? Mercy for me, justice for everyone else is much too common addiction. There are those among us who would recoil in horror at the thought of stealing another person's money or property, but who don't give a second thought to stealing another person's good name or reputation. Charity is the antidote for every baggage breeding behavior. It is what lifts us above celestial living. I've seen charity in action time and time again in countless settings and cultures. One experience is indicative of many others. At age 32, I was called to serve in a stake relief society presidency, and the three of us bonded quickly as the dearest of friends because of my work schedule and the large families of the president and other counselors. We held presidency meetings on Tuesdays at the unearthly hour of 5:30 a.m. One morning, the president raised an issue that, for some reason, set me off. I climbed on my um, ram- ramumdum, delivered a tirade, and left in a huff. But as I drove away and headed toward work, my heart sank. I couldn't believe I responded to my friends that way, and I was desperate to apologize, but I felt as if I needed to do so in person, which I determined to do that very night. Finally, every I mean, finally evening came. I stopped to Sorry guys, I'm having trouble reading because my eyesight is just driving me crazy. I stopped at home briefly to pick up something only to have the doorbell ring. There stood my two friends, casseroles in hand. The mothers of 15 children between them had brought me, the mother of none, dinner. I'll never forget what they said. The morning wasn't like you. This morning wasn't like you. Sorry. This morning wasn't like you. You must be under a lot of pressure. We thought dinner might make you feel better. Tears flowed as I apologized, and our friendship grew instantly stronger. Imagine what they could have been saying all day. That little brat, she's not even married. What does she know? She's lucky to even be in the presidency. They could have whipped themselves into a lather and punished me for days, but they didn't. They didn't gossip. They didn't judge. They did give me the benefit of the doubt. That day I saw what charity looked like. Charity was not by the way the casseroles. It was my friend's gentle handling of a mistake and their willingness to assume the best and step forward to soothe feelings and emotions. The prophet Joseph declared that nothing is so much calculated to lead people to forsake sin as to take them by the hand and watch over them with tenderness. When persons manifest the least kindness and love to me, oh, what power it has over my mind. Sorry, guys. Words of Joseph Smith. My friends took me by the hand and showed me a better way. I imagine each of us can think of times when we didn't handle things very well. Why do we sometimes gossip and jump to unfair conclusions when we never have all the facts? Why do we get jealous when others succeed or get something we want? Why do we sometimes pout and set up silent competitions with each other? Why do we even at times attempt to sabotage someone else? Usually, all while justifying our behavior in our minds in some way. There are times when I wonder if the final judgment will be a breeze compared with what we put each other through here on the earth. Our Father did not intend for his children to wrench each other's heartstrings. I fear that our charity sometimes faileth. One wonders if the prophet Joseph agreed. As just one way of demonstrating this, I cannot find even one address of the many he delivered to the Relief Society where he didn't implore the sisters to treat each other better. Here are just a few examples. Put a double watch over the tongue. The tongue is an unruly member. Hold your tongues about things of no moment. A little tale will set the world on fire. Don't do more hurt than good with your tongues. Be pure in heart. As females possess refined feelings and sensitiveness, they are also subject to overmuch zeal, which must ever prove dangerous and cause them to be rigid in a religious capacity. They should be armed with mercy, notwithstanding the iniquity among us. Don't be limited in your view with regard to your neighbor's virtues, but be limited to your own virtues. And not think yourselves more righteous than others. You must enlarge your souls toward others if you would do like Jesus. And lest the man think they get off. Hold on, guys. I need to move this light because I think that's what's triggering me to not be able to see. And my stigmatism is just, it's acting up. Sorry about that. And not think yourselves more righteous than others. You must enlarge your souls towards others if you would do like Jesus. And lest the men think they get off the hook. He also spoke of great big elders, as he called them, who had caused him much trouble by claiming and teaching his revelations as their own. He said he had been trampled underfoot by aspiring elders, for all were infected with that spirit. Then added a warning to the sisters that the same aspiring disposition will be in this society and must be guarded against. Further, Joseph was not the only prophet in this dispensation to address this topic. As just one additional example of many that could be cited, during those dreadful days at winter quarters, Brigham Young counseled his beleaguered band to cease to contend one with another, cease to speak evil one of another. Let your words tend to edifying one another. For years, I have pondered and prayed about charity, in part because more than 20 years of service in various Relief Society presidencies has drawn me to Moroni 7 again and again. But further, many experiences during recent years have caused me to think more deeply about charity. What it really is, what it can do for us, and why such superlatives are used to describe it. I think of an African American sister who called me in distress after her first Sunday in a new ward where a woman told her, "This is a white ward. Yours is across town." I was shocked to hear that something of that nature could still take place. Where might she have turned for a friend that day? I think of a couple who had to move to escape persistent condemnation from fellow saints after their son took his life because he could no longer cope with same gender attraction. They mourned alone. I think of a friend whose hopes for 10 children were dashed by illness. She called in tears after overhearing friends say, I wonder why she and her husband only had one child. My friend's response, we wonder too. I think of another woman who recently called me, can you help me? She pleaded, reaching out in what felt like desperation to someone she had never met. Our gospel doctrine teaches keeps teaching that converts aren't as worthy as those born in the covenant. Is that true? Can I never feel fully worthy before the Lord? Hmm. Technically speak, the prophet Joseph was a convert, as were Brigham and Heber, Parley and Eliza. No doubt this is an instructor no doubt this instructor was simply in error, having apparently not noticed how many times the Lord promises to give all he has to everyone who qualifies through his or her faithfulness. But the effect on the woman was the same as it would have been if the slight had been intentional. You know, this really hits a home. Uh, I think that goes on a lot. And I feel like that's why a lot of converts or a lot of people, long members of the church, like they stop going because of some hurtful or some. I mean, I know I did. I stopped going for a while because I felt a certain way. I felt like I was treated a certain way, or I overheard something, or I saw that certain people were acting a certain way. And here we are trying to do better unto others and do good for others. And then you hear stuff like that, and you question what you're doing and associating with those kind of people. So I know I've been there, but I think we need to be stronger and not allow those people to keep us from where we need to be. Because I know I feel like I lost a lot of time. They didn't lose any time. I was keeping myself from going to church because I felt I wasn't angry at them. I was just like, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So, yeah. Um, yeah, this is really relatable. Um, we probably all relate to moments like these. I have found that being the somewhat recognizable president of a visible company in the LDS culture has its ups and downs. I was waking to my car. I'm waking. I was walking to my car after a tabernacle choir Christmas concert when a woman approached me and said, Sister Do, you're the president of the Deseret Book, aren't you? Yes, I responded. Well, I just want you to know that I hate the ads you're running on TV, she said with venom, taken aback, taken aback a little. A little. I tried to sound calm as I answered, Thank you. I'll pass that along to our marketing department. No, I mean, I really hate those ads, she persisted. Thank you. I said again, trying to reassure her that I truly would pass along her feedback. But she wasn't satisfied and kept on. But how could you have let them run those ads? They're awful. At a loss to know how to make her feel better, there in the parking lot, I simply thanked her again for her feedback and then walked on. I found myself wondering, though, what motivated such angry comments. I was similarly perplexed when a recent symposium sponsored by an LDS oriented periodical feature a session that evaluated my addresses focusing particularly on my rhetoric and on whether or not I practiced what I preached. When I listened to a recording of the presentation after the fact, I was amazed that people who had never met or talked with me could have developed an entire presentation in which they judged my motives and the intent of my heart. I was also interested in attitudes and feelings that attributed to me that were not at all true, and was particularly fascinated to learn that I had chosen to remain single so that I could have a more powerful voice. I guess there is no way they could have known, especially without asking me about the thousands of hours um, over 3 decades at latest count. I have spent fasting in the temple and on my knees pleading with the Lord for the blessing of marriage that seems to come too easily to so many. Some experiences are far more painful, though, than brief encounters in parking lots or even symposium commentaries. Some commentaries that come and go. As an example, in the summer of 2004, I was invited to offer an invocation at the Republican National Convention. My immediate reaction, thanks, but no thanks. Though I have a deep patriotic streak, I'm not very political. I didn't want to worry about praying in such a non prayer like setting. I didn't want to go to New York City during the frenzy of a convention. It all sounded like a big hassle to me. I was ready to phone with my regrets, but several questions tagged at nagged at me. What if this invitation had been divinely prompted? There certainly wasn't any earthly explanation for it. If I declined, would they ask another church member to pray? What about the first presidency's repeated counsel that we be involved citizens? Furthermore, was it ever wrong to pray? And what about the tired media perception that LDS women are oppressed creatures who can't think for themselves? Was this a chance for the world to see that, yes, LDS women pray even in public? So I reluctantly accepted. I worked very hard to craft a way to acknowledge the Savior without offending those who didn't believe in him. The prayer I offered was non-partisan. Ironically, I prayed that we might live without um, acronym. Sorry, guys. I have to focus on something else so that my eyes can focus on what I'm reading. So I need to just kind of give my eyes a minute to refocus. That's one of the luxuries of having stigmatism is that you get a little break. Okay, so yeah. And then flew home to an avalanche of criticism because one media report implied that I was a Democrat. I got blasted by both appalled Republicans that I could possibly be a Democrat and insulted Democrats that I had prayed at a Republican event. By the way, I've never been asked my party affiliation at a temple recommend interview. One letter to the editor in a local newspaper began, "Shame on Sherry Dew," and then tore me apart. The criticism was painful and embarrassing. I have second guessed giving that prayer a prayer 100 times. Frankly, it may have been a mistake, but I feel at peace about one thing, that the Lord at least will judge me on the intent of my heart, which is why he reserves judgment for himself. Only he can see the whole of any picture, including what's in our hearts. As an aside, there were those who found humor in the entire situation, as did a treasured friend who emailed me afterward with this. My brother and I were feeling sad that we didn't get to hear your prayer or see you at the convention. He hit on the idea of going to Google to see if we could find a copy of your prayer. I'm sending along what we found, and he's wondering if this is really the prayer you offered. We are grateful for the music which has stirred every filter of our being. We know that this is the right place to be. We believe that thou hast separated us from our brethren, and we do not believe in their foolish traditions. We are so glad we are not bound down to the platform of our opponents, but we believe that we're supposed to be elected while all around us will be disappointed. Never, n- Nevertheless, and notwithstanding, truth shall prevail. The elephant shall not lie down with the donkey in this world, in the world to come. We know without a shadow of a doubt who thou desire to be president. Bless the poor and the needy, the sick and the afflicted, and then associated with the wrong candidate. We hope all those who are not here this time will be here next time. Take us to our various homes in safety. Ay, ay, ay. Humor can take the sting out of situations where charity is not present. Humor can help us see sometimes just how far afield we may have strayed in terms of how we are viewing and too often judging and commenting upon the actions of those around us, because it can be discouraging to do your best in a difficult situation only to have your motives and judgment questioned by people who weren't there and under pressure to make the right decision at the right time. No one in our dispensation has been more harshly or unfairly judged than has the prophet Joseph, and such assessments continue to the current day. Certainly, Joseph had his own foibles. Some living on his day could see past them, others could not. To this day, I marvel at those who insist on trying to identify any little flaw, assuming that such a revelation might throw his prophetic calling in question. And yet, think about what he dealt with. The Lord put the restoration in his hands of a teenager. Further, Joseph was only 24, a young adult, the day the church was organized on April 6, 1830. Think about what he did against unbelievable odds. The young boy prophet never went to a youth conference or EFY, never had a bishop's interview or a supportive priest quorum advisor, never went to seminary or institute, never attended a church dance or activity. Yet, while some in his day focused on magnificence of what he was accomplishing, others couldn't see past his mortal, human, young adult mistakes made while charting a course through completely unknown territory. There are similarities for us. Some of those we bump into along this life's path are able to see past our foibles and follies, realizing that what we are trying to do is actually quite remarkable. Set against the intense backdrop of the last days, we have been sent here to do things no other group of men or women in history have been required to do in quite the same way and under quite the same degree of pressure. How unfortunate it is then when we focus heavily on each other's mistakes or moments of poor judgment. I think we're almost done here, guys. Almost done. It's almost 30 minutes. I'm so sorry about making it so long, but this is a long chapter. So now, two cautions. First, none of us handles things perfectly all the time, which is just one of the reasons I love Lehi's wife, Sarah, whose faith wavered a bit when fear for her sons momentarily overcame her confidence in her husband and the Lord. And second, we are expected to judge good from evil if we are to protect ourselves and those we love. The Holy Ghost and the Spirit of Christ, which is given to every man, help us to do so. For we may know God good from evil, and the way to judge is as plain that we may know with a perfect knowledge as the daylight is from the dark night. Further, turning the other cheek does not mean allowing others to abuse us, and particularly, it does not mean we should allow others to abuse us again and again. What we are not authorized to do, however, is make judgments that convict, sentence, and execute one another. In each case, they are violations of the law of charity. Okay, guys, so I'm gonna just read this last part and we should be done. We're already at 30 minutes, guys. I'm sorry about that, but I really, really like this book. So I'm probably gonna just end up giving you my feedback on this on another video. I'm just gonna go ahead and cut it right here so I can go ahead and do another video just explaining my thoughts on this chapter and giving you my thoughts and just giving you like a little story, a relatable story to it. So go ahead and look for part 2 to chapter 3. So yeah, check that video out. Bye, guys.